Let's talk about the game that just wrapped up, though. Portland hosting New England, and this was fun. This was
Yeah.
really, really fun. Man, it was. Sometimes you wonder about what you're going to get in terms of quality of play on day one of the MLS season. Maybe there's still a little rust going on, but I feel very satisfied as a neutral. Doyle, having watched this one, what was your sort of takeaway from this?
The level of intensity was off the charts.
Yeah,
It didn't feel like a regular season game. It just felt like a continuation of the playoffs, which is, I guess, a little bit to be expected because you have the defending Supporter Shield champion against this Portland team that obviously the last time they played was an MLS Cup. So it ended up producing kind of a day one classic, and obviously the cherry on top of the whole damn thing was Jimmy Chara's bicycle kick goal. He had all the time in the world. He's like, "Nah, I'm gonna bike it. I'm gonna bike it." And we got a goal of the year contender
I
on our
know on day
first
one.
Saturday night of the season, which is
Did that happen last season? I feel like there was an incredible goal on the first
uh,
day of last season, or maybe it
I
was.
was
I
I was
can't remember.
flashing back to the Pipa Higuain goal. I think it was opening day in Portland, when he was with Columbus, and I think he did an overhead kick as well in that one.
Oh,
But that was the thing. I mean, for me, like you watched the slate of games today, and you saw some teams, surely, probably some more than others, that were lacking a little bit of that,
sure.
maybe finishing quality, or I think, for example, you look at like just like Philadelphia or some teams that just didn't have that kind of like cutting edge at the very end. And I think just when you look at this last match, um, that really stood out to me. I mean,
yeah.
that one obviously is going to stand out, but then I mean, even the way Leggett took his that kind
Hmm.
of tidy finish to the back post, and then the even like the little through ball from Santiago Moreno where he
It
just
was
kind of
awesome.
lifts it, just cuts it just straight through, threads the needle, and then our guy Dyron obviously is going to finish that. But
Of course he
uh,
is.
I just thought like the quality, it didn't look like in this last match, it didn't look like an opening match of games, and for like a New England team that hadn't even played in Champions League. So I was pretty taken aback by some teams that seemed like they didn't really miss a beat stepping into opening day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was quality all around, and as Doyle pointed out, the intensity was palpable. It was there. Did not feel like the first day of the season. And the thing that I don't want to say surprised me, but I think that all of us can agree that we assume or sort of anticipate that New England is once again going to have a very successful season, right? I think we all kind of have them. Maybe not a supporter shield winner, or maybe not a record setting year in terms of points, but I think we are all prepared to have them go pretty far in this season. Portland was not a huge question mark for me, but I was really impressed. I was really impressed how they played in this game, how they came back, they stayed in it, they turned up the intensity when they needed, and I think it bodes really well for them against an Eastern Conference team that they haven't seen in a long time, a team that won the Supporters Shield last year, broke all kinds of records. Like this, Portland has to feel pretty good about grabbing a point here, Doyle.
I think so. I mean, usually it's a home game, right? So you want to take all three, but we all know that with all the injuries and uncertainty around this team, that like just getting out of the gate without falling on your face completely is probably kind of a victory for Portland. But I will say on top of that, it like Santi Moreno changes the way I think about this team
Mm.
going forward. Because this kid is something else. And you said it, Calen, that pass that he had, the assist he had on the Dyron goal was like it was visionary. And he's done that a lot. I think he had 4 assists in 350 minutes last year. When I like earlier this week or last whenever, I don't know what day it is. Like recently I wrote a thing where I was doing Portland's projected starting 11 and depth charts, and I put out there like maybe Moreno would be starting to start the year. Maybe he would have to jockey with Chara and Dyron and whoever else. Chris Reifer, a good friend, a guy who's been covering the Timbers forever. He hit my DMs. He's like, write Santi Moreno's name in pen. He is going to be like one of the best young players in the league this year. He showed it with that creativity on the ball coming in from the wing, but also his movement off the ball. And if you combine those two things, you have a very, very, very good player. And it looks like that is the case for Portland.
I'll say the other thing I would add to that is like coming off of a really kind of gut wrenching MLS Cup loss,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which I've done that a couple times, unfortunately. It can be kind of opening day can be kind of hard because it sneaks up on you, right? It's a quick off season. The turnaround is quick. Your preseason, you're really still kind of healing your wounds from last year, and we saw, most notably from that. Um, is Sebastian Blanca. Just came in for the last couple minutes, but just like it can be kind of difficult. So I think just to come back and to kind of come back into the game the way they did against a team like New England, that kind of once they get the lead, they very rarely let you back in. So I would say that was a really positive sign from Portland as far as the team being able to come back and get into this game.
That's a really good point. That was it's funny. I was watching it and I was like, "Oh my God, that was only, a couple months ago that I was in Portland watching them lose in such heartbreaking fashion." So yeah, I agree. I think that the sort of the mental strength to come out and just sort of forget the past. Past is in the past. This is a new season, new year. Again, I'll bring it up again. We I think we all anticipate that New England is going to be a playoff contender this year, certainly contending for a cup. How do we feel about Portland in those regards? When you look at the Western Conference, is this a Portland team that can legitimately contend for a top spot for MLS Cup? Doyle, what do you think?
I mean, that's the thing with Portland. Even after today's game, I still think it's a coin flip. Like you could talk me into this team finishing top 3 in the Western Conference, getting hot in the playoffs and making a run all the way back to MLS Cup again. You could talk me into this team being too old, too injured, too out of sync, and finishing out of the playoffs entirely. Yeah, and there's a half dozen teams in MLS like that this year, and Portland's one of them. It's they did look good in a lot of ways to start their season, but also they took they only took 1 point at home. That's
Yeah.
not how you want to start the season. So it's I need more data before I say.
I was gonna say, Doyle, didn't you have a category in your preseason predictions that was high upside mystery box?
Yes, yeah,
I
like
love that.
literally, like high upside mystery box. Like you open it and it might be like the best thing you've ever seen, but also might not be exactly what you want.
I love that. I feel like such a great descriptor for that category.
It
It's like
might be a smoked
boy band.
American whiskey, a peated American whiskey from Oregon.
Ooh,
So good.
mwah,
Yeah.
mwah.
Or it might be some white wine you got at Trader Joe's. Whatever.
Listen, again, this is judgment free. So you can drink. These are hard times, people. There's a lot of price inflation. You drink what you can, whatever makes you happy. It's fine. It's all good. Everything works here. Real quick before we move on, we saw Sebastian Lletget, a new acquisition for the Revs. We also saw Josie Altidore come on for a brief bit. Was there anything? Obviously, Sebastian Lletget scored a really nice goal for New England. Any thoughts on what you saw from those guys?
Lletget stood out to me. I think when we've seen this New England team, sometimes Carlos Hill has a free roll where he can kind of go as he pleases, but Polster would often sit a little bit deeper, and McNamara as well is more of, I would say, kind of like a shuttler. But I think Lletget, the way he was able to kind of connect with Carlos Hill to be able to bounce balls off him. And then what we've seen with him time and time again, whether it's with the national team or even with LA Galaxy, to make those late arriving runs into the box gives them something a little bit different. Because sometimes when we've seen New England and it's not working, they need to kind of get balls out wide, and they don't have Tajon this year, which changes the dynamic as far as somebody who can break players down from the wings. And yeah, they have Jones and some guys that can get forward and do well and dangerous on set pieces. But I think somebody that can kind of make a late arriving run when Carlos Hill's gone wide, or be a presence coming into the box late. We saw that in a really good example from today from Lletget. And so I like kind of that moment too where he's like, "Yeah, I'm here." He kind of announced himself afterwards, and
Yeah.
Bruce is clever, right? Like he's gotten guys, even Omar, like he's gotten guys that I think he knows and fit in his system and he trusts. We only saw a couple minutes from Josie tonight, but I think we'll see moments like that from him as well too. So I think it was a really positive start for Leggett, and I think just having that sort of soccer brain or somebody to connect with a little further up the pitch with Carlos Hill, I think is going to help them a lot.
Cool. Cool. Anything to add, Doyle?
No, I mean it was like a point on the road to start the season was good. They went up 2-1. I'm sure they would be happy with that. They
Sure.
weren't able to protect the lead. And if you like go back and watch the game, the final half hour, everything was pointed Portland's direction. And you understand that. Portland's at home, they're throwing the kitchen sink at it, just trying to get a result. And it's tough in that situation. But like these are the games last year that the Revs found a way to win by a goal. And they were talking about it on the broadcast. The Revs won 18 games last year by a single goal, as by far the single season record. You can't keep that up year after year.
Mhm.
So I think they need to do they need to find a better way to kill off these games, whether it means throwing more numbers at it, whether it means changing the shape a little bit so that you can dominate the game in midfield and kind of control that way. The last half hour, it looked like the same old Revs, and that's not. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but like they danced on the knife's edge last year. I don't think you can do that 2 years in a row, especially when you're going to be without Matt Turner for most of the season. Though I said Earl Edwards, I thought was very, very good tonight. He had himself
He
a
was.
excellent game, but like you can't count on that week after week after week.
All right, good stuff. Let's move it along to some of the other big storylines of the day. And for me, and I think for most people, judging on social media, Twitter, our Twitch chat and YouTube chat, Carlos Vela is kind of stealing the day,
Who?
y'all. Is Yeah, exactly. This guy, what just so casually scores a hat trick in a 3-0 win over Colorado. And I'm just right now, I'm just going to kind of turn it over to Doyle because you straight up predicted this. You knew this was going to happen. I didn't necessarily believe this was the Vela we were going to see right out of the gates, but you're a believer. I give you all the credit, sir. Yeah, I'm a real dummy,
I mean,
basically.
Calen deserves the credit because Calen was the one who pointed out that Vela's in a contract year. You know,
Oh,
like he's one of the most talented players ever to play in MLS, and he's still like in the tail end of his prime. He he can do this in a
yeah.
way that nobody who's ever played in this league can do this. And it was, the first goal came off high press. He was involved in the press, which he was not involved in the press at all the past 2 years. It looked like 2019 all over again. So, you know, creating a penalty out of that, which of course he buried. The second goal, he's like stretching the back line, running, like for a
Vintage
long ball
Vela.
over the top, which we did not see the past 2 years. And then the third goal was literally vintage Vela. And like if you're gonna get this version of Vela every time he's in a contract year, just keep signing him to 1-year deals, man. Pay him whatever you want because like this version of Vela is unplayable. He's the best player in the league when he's out there like this. And the other thing I want to say here, Steve Cherundolo took over for Bob Bradley, and
Mhm.
whenever there's a new coach in, I think there's always a temptation to sort of tear everything down and start anew
Yeah.
and put your own principles of play in your own system. And it does not look like Steve Cherundolo did that. It looks like he was smart enough to come in there and look at it and say, we need a couple different players here. We got to get a little more know-how along the back line and in the central midfield. But what LAFC have had for the past 4 years was working. So let's stick with that. Get those new players in, a new voice on the sideline, a healthy Carlos Vela. Like that's a really good recipe. So full credit to Steve Cherundolo for not trying to fix what clearly was not broken in his first game with LAFC.
Yeah, 100%. Calen, what's your takeaway from this Vela performance and LAFC?
Well, I mentioned the contract, which doesn't hurt as far as motivation goes. But I think that's the strange thing about Vela is like when he is feeling it, like when he's in a good place or when he's motivated and enjoying himself, like he's unstoppable, really. Like, he's just at another level. And like the scary part for LAFC is they didn't have Arango tonight. He's not fully fit. I think he picked up a little bit of a knock
Yeah.
at the end of preseason, so he came into the match late. But Vela started as the 9, which is not his best spot. It's a position we've seen Bob try him at in the past. That he's had some success at, just because he's quality, but I think, not necessarily his best position. I'm seeing him out in the wing a bit more, but he got off to a fantastic start. I think, to your point, Doyle, about Cherundolo, the other thing that I really like from LAFC perspective is if you have a new manager coming in who hasn't coached in MLS, they really made a shift, because we've seen them go out for talent in off seasons in the past, or when they've needed to upgrade and look abroad. And they went out and got a ton of MLS experience. Kellen Acosta, Ilie, Escobar. We saw only a little bit of Hollingshead tonight, but I think bringing in guys that have that kind of know-how, and it's always important to have that kind of mix of that international talent and young emerging talent, Cifuentes, Palacios, guys like that, Murillo, all these guys. And then the other piece that I don't know if had to really stand up tall tonight was Crepeau, but I think he's going to have a big influence on the season, and a big presence in the back line as well. But they looked scary tonight, and I think I'm excited to see Arango come into Vela, because I feel like when we've seen the best of Vela, it hasn't even been with a deadly number 9. It's been
Mhm.
kind of by committee. And so if you add that wrinkle to the fold, and then you have Rodriguez on the other side, it's like that could get scary.
So so earlier this week we heard that there was some breaking Carlos Vela news that we know that his contract is up. We know that he all indications point that he's not going to stay at LAFC, Doyle. Like, he is, and Calen pointed out, when you are motivated, maybe you kind of switch into a higher gear, if you will. Carlos Vela has a lot to play for right now. What's the likelihood that he sees this out with LAFC? What do they do if he departs for what he perceives to be greener pastures?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Um, we don't know. Like, apparently his contract ends in the summer. It ends in June. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's obviously massive in a lot of ways to figure out what they're going to do with that, because again, if he plays like this, he's basically irreplaceable. Um, I don't know what's going to happen. I would like to. I would hope that he gets this year as a last hurrah with
Mhm.
LAFC, because he has been, 2 absolutely spectacular years, and then even in 2020 in the CONCACAF Champions League, he was amazing. So hopefully he gets one last hurrah and can leave on a high. And I believe the reporting that he wants to go back to Spain. His
Yeah.
wife is from San Sebastian. They were, obviously they've been happy in LA, but San Sebastian is home to them. And Cancun is home, and like LA is pretty far from both those places. So just like, if you're an LAFC fan, enjoy them while you got them, and hope that there are a few more performances like this one, in the waiting this season.
No kidding. Love them while you have them, folks. Solid advice there from Matt Doyle. Real quick, I want to talk about Colorado, because this is a team that surprised everybody last year, won the West. What was your takeaway on what I felt was a pretty lackluster performance? I don't know, Calen, your thoughts on Colorado in a 3-0 loss, where the storylines were all Carlos Vela.
Well, I think they're going to be all right. I think this Colorado team is going to be fine. I think we've talked about it for a while, though, that like this tends to happen where, especially on a day like today, where the knock on Colorado has been the top end talent, right?
Mhm.
And that's not to like throw shade at anybody around, but I just think when you have a difference of Carlos Vela, or you see those kind of one-on-one matchups, that's where you get to be a little bit in trouble. I still think they need to go out and fix that number 9
Yeah.
position. But that's what everybody said. So it's kind of like,
It's not news.
and they didn't do it last year. They finished top of the West.
Yeah.
So, if you're them, it's like, all right, like if you want to go one step further, which I think we all kind of hope they they do, and we think they can. I think that's in them, but it's just like maybe they go out and I think some of the rumors we've been talking about, would they go out and get Ola Kamara, who came in and had a ball shot off his chest and scored. The guy can't not score, and they just
He
need
scores.
somebody to put the ball in the
He
back
just
of the
scores.
net.
Yeah.
Right? So I hope they go out and make a move like that, but it's kind of tough to call because I don't know. It seems like they're content.
Yeah, it does seem like that's the sort of missing ingredient. I don't know. Doyle, any thoughts on Colorado?
I mean, today's performance was bad. It was also kind of predictable given the heartbreak of midweek at home, playing at altitude, losing in penalties to, a Central American team. That was not how the script was going to go. It's tough, and this was tough, but I'm not panicking yet, though obviously I co-sign everything Calen said. Like, they not have to put the ball in the back of the net, but, like, a good number 9 can sort of, like, change the geometry of the game for you by opening up the spot, especially between the opposing center backs and central midfield. Like, a number 9 puts pressure on those center backs all the time. It could give guys like Mark Anthony Kaye space to work, and he hasn't had any space. He didn't have anything today, and that's not good if you're Robin Fraser and the Rapids.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with both of those thoughts. All right, guys, let's move it along to Charlotte FC. Charlotte FC making their MLS debut, their inaugural season. They were in DC at Audi Field, and the result of this one, not so great for Charlotte, a 3-0 loss. But I want to preface this by saying I do not think that result is terribly indicative of what Charlotte put out on the field tonight. I actually think that for the first maybe 30 minutes of this game, Charlotte looked okay. Charlotte maybe were the better team for a spurt, and they would have had the lead had that first goal not been called offside. And then I think once DC equalized, it just sort of was this gut punch that they were never really quite able to recover from. But I don't think, if I'm Charlotte FC right now, if I am Miguel Angel Ramirez, I'm not feeling terrible about this. I think that it wasn't, it obviously you don't want to lose 3-0. You don't want to get shut out. But I don't think it was like a total embarrassment. Is that just me being maybe a little under the influence of my boat drink and feeling just wanting good things for Charlotte? Is that
No,
the case,
Susannah?
Doyle?
It could be worse. It could be worse.
I think it could be worse.
Look
right?
around the league.
Come on.
There's a bunch of teams today that would trade for that 3-0 result. I think Cincinnati would probably be first on the list.
Oh, I knew you were gonna go there.
No, I mean it was tough, right? With the goal, which I think it was offside, and then as well, I actually had more questions for the handball call, but I'm gonna wait for our esteemed Andrew Wiebe who's listening here today.
Let's go.
I don't make up my mind until I watch instant replay. Like I have a thought, I have an intuition, but I really need to.
I'll say this: I only have 2 thoughts about calls in this game. So if it's Wiebe and Charlie, I just agree with what they say. Or if it's Anders angrily texting me, I believe the opposite. I believe the entire opposite. Whatever.
That's good strategy. Yeah,
I like that logic. Totally. Yeah. Oh,
but no, like Charlotte didn't they weren't good. They did have moments though. I didn't think it was a handball on Bronico that led to the opening DC goal. Charlotte kind of crumbled. Well, I don't want to say they kind of crumbled after that, but they had bad luck there, and then they had bad luck with the deflection on the second goal. Like, Estrada's shooting from 25 yards, and it deflects, completely wrong, puts the keeper, and you're 2-0 down like that in your first ever game. It's hard to pull out of that hole.
Yeah.
There will probably be more 3-0 losses this year for them. They don't look like a great team right now, but the hope is for growth over the course of the season. I don't think it affects
the margins are going to be small no matter what, right?
Yeah.
You got to the margins are going to be this tight for them to get results. That's the way this team is set up right now.
Yeah.
And the hope is that they continue to build from that. I think Miguel Angel Ramirez has been pretty open about how he feels about the team and that they need support. The one positive I would add is to say that their number 9 DP is not available yet, right? And so I think that giving that kind of cutting edge or finishing ability would is something to hold on to, because I think they were, even for this Charlotte team, which I think the manager has said needs help, is not at their full strength even. So that's a hopeful thing. And then you got to also hope that that huge 70,000+ at home against the Galaxy next week is going to give you a ton of energy
Yeah.
to kind of push you over the line. So
Yeah.
Chicharito hat trick.
Oh God.
Doyle, how dare you put that in the world, man?
You did. You just put that out in the universe, and now you have made mortal enemies with all of.
Well, he's got to equal Chicharito
Charlotte
now.
FC
I mean,
Nation.
Vela now. So.
No, I mean, to their credit, Calen and I were in Charlotte a couple weeks ago, doing a feature on their first season and kind of what we can come to expect from the club, both on the field, off the field, the supporter culture. And I will say, I am so looking forward to next weekend and seeing Bank of America Stadium just absolutely rocking. They are looking to break an attendance record held by Atlanta United, which is just so juicy, because they've already established them as their biggest rival, just in terms of geography. And so if they can get to 75,000, I do think that would be a huge boost. I want good things for Charlotte. I always want good things for our expansion teams. They're doing a lot of things right, and so I'm gonna end that topic on this saying, no, don't hang your head, Charlotte FC. It wasn't a total embarrassment. Now, if you're Cincinnati kids and you lose 5-0 to Austin, mind you, this game was in Austin, which is I have not been there, but I've heard that it's fantastic and a tough place to play. But I mean, huge credit to Austin. They have to be feeling so great about this result. But my question is this Austin coming out just really, really solid, or is this more of the same from Cincinnati? Doyle, what do you think?
I regret to inform you that it sure looked like more of the same.
Aye.
The first goal was off a set piece where like somehow it just snuck through to the back post. Nobody could clear it. The second one is off a recycled corner kick. Nobody wins the second ball. The back line's a mess. So Alex Ring is able to sort of sneak back post. The third goal, Cincinnati made Austin look like prime tiki-taka Barcelona. Austin connected 4 or 5 passes, like 3-yard passes in the box, and just danced around for Cincinnati defenders. It was not a great start to the season for FC Cincinnati. I think the only thing you can do is just wipe it out, put it in, purge it from the memory banks and move on to week 2. If you're Austin, bottle that, because they part of this was Austin being really, really good. They were attacking with more pace than last year. They were way less vulnerable in transition. They were hitting, they were dangerous on set pieces. Obviously, they scored 2 of them, but they were dangerous in combination play. They were dangerous over the top. They were dangerous in transitions. They looked really, really good. And I think we saw some of the seeds of that last year from Josh Wolf and his team. They have better personnel to execute it this year, and that was really on display. And those fans were obviously loving it. It was a zoo there. So it was nice to see. I actually got, believe it or not, I got a nice message from someone on Twitter.
You didn't.
I got a nice message from an Austin fan.
I don't believe it.
It was I started following MLS because of you. Tonight is the best night I've ever had as an MLS fan. Obviously very drunk in my DMs, but it's people could be nice on social media. It's a brand new year, guys. I'm telling you.
What is going on?
Yeah.
Oh God. Just Doyle losing positivity for Austin. I don't know what is happening. Calen, What you
I
got to
feel
say about
I
this?
I feel like it was karma for Cincinnati wearing all orange for the
Oh,
Dynamo. I was actually offended because I
I
was
knew
like,
it.
this actually people, if you're just flicking through the channel, you might think that the Dynamo are
Oh
doing this.
boy,
So I was upset about that.
they
But
stole your look. They stole your look.
no, like for context though, like Austin, I think they scored the fewest goals in MLS last year. I think
Yeah.
they had 35 goals, and I think for reference, like I think New England had double that, if not a few more. So this is not an explosive Austin team that's been able to do this in the past. So it was huge for them to get off to the right on the right track. And then the
Sure.
other thing for Austin too is just like keeping a clean sheet. And I think that that's something that they're going to feel really good about. I thought, Doyle made a point earlier in the stream we were doing before about Keller, the rookie, stepping in as a center back.
Kip Keller.
Yeah, St. Louis, I think grad, or he came
Yep.
through that system, and I think had a lot of really positive moments in this, and being able to step in day one right away. He kind of had that profile coming in that he was going to be able to play and make
Mhm.
an impact. But if you're Cincinnati and had an opportunity to get him, I think that's something you might think twice about. But
Yeah.
he was good on the day, and for Austin to kind of start off the season with the confidence of seeing the ball hit the back of the net for a fan base that's been desperate for goals. Fantastic start for them.
Let's go. Verde, Verde, Verde. All right, another blowout that we saw earlier this evening. The Columbus Crew beating Vancouver 4-0. This was, I mean, Columbus, this last year, it's so embarrassing, but I am notoriously just utter crap at preseason predictions. Like every
Don't feel bad.
no, I'm terrible. I'm
Everybody picked
admittedly
Columbus
terrible.
last year.
But
They won MLS Cup.
I went all in on Columbus last year. Like I was like, they're gonna repeat as MLS Cup champions. Lucas Zelleran's gonna win MLS MVP and the Golden Boot. Book it now. I was like so confident that this was going to happen, and it did not. It did not. But as Doyle pointed out to me earlier today, this is really just following a pattern of Caleb Porter and sort of his track record, because apparently every single time he wins an MLS Cup, he then follows it up with not making the playoffs, but then having like this incredible bounce back season. Which is this the start of that? How impressed are we with the 4-0 win over Vancouver, Doyle?
I was pretty impressed. They knew exactly how they wanted to rip apart that three-man back line for Vancouver, and Yaya Boa, their new winger that they got this offseason. He was able to get in that gap between the outside center back and the wing back. And like if you're a winger operating against like a 3-5-2, that's where you want to be, because you want to make either the wing back stop supporting the attack and have to track back, or you want to make the center back step out. And if neither does it, then you have a chance to provide like free service into the box. And they were able to provide free service into the box for about the first 35 minutes, and by which point I think it was already 3-0 and the game was over. And that was, I mean, we didn't see that from Columbus last year. Either the ruthlessness in their finishing, or the pragmatism in terms of like getting numbers in the box, or the execution from their wide players. And that's like three really big boxes to check for this team. It's the boxes that they checked during that playoff run to winning MLS Cup in 2020, and like basically not at all in 2021. So it was like a really good start to the season. And on top of that, Artur was back, and Artur is not the flashiest guy in the world, but he's such a big part of that team. He's very skillful. He wins the ball a ton, but I think it's just like the energy he plays with it's like infectious for the rest of that team. Like they play with more pace when he's out there, with more intensity, and I think they missed that basically all of last year. So I think if you're a Crew fan tonight, between winning 4-0 and seeing Cincinnati get drilled 5-0, you're probably sleeping pretty well, or you're blind drunk and not sleeping well at all. But like either way, you had it.
Calen, anything to add there as Doyle sinks his final drop of whiskey is empty. I'm watching him on a video, y'all. You can't see this, but yeah, he just downed that, and I feel like that was sort of his mic drop moment. It was great.
I was like, wait, we're on video? Hold on a second. Can you guys see me?
Y'all don't know I'm watching you, but I am.
Okay, good. Jeez, I gotta be careful. No, I'm a little concerned. I would say a little concerned around Vancouver.
Yeah.
That 3-man back line did not look good. The first goal, Barry kind of turns pretty easily. It does take a nasty deflection, and then even with the change of Crepeau leaving, Hasal, his reaction was a bit late. And then even on the second goal where Etienne is able to get in behind it, it's Blackman who's new there, who I think is a really smart pickup for them. He's kind of gets sucked in a little bit too far over to the other side of the pitch and gives a nice little easy pathway for Etienne to be able to finish, which he took well. So
Yeah.
I think, this Columbus team does look really good. They do look back. I was impressed, but I would say a little bit concerned about Montreal not Montreal, Vancouver with this setup. And yeah, no Brian White. That's a big caveat, I think.
Yeah.
To leave out, but I also think I had some question marks. I love Sartini. I think we all do. His energy, his enthusiasm, all that, but it's a little bit different when you come in partway through a season and you kind of run on those fumes and that energy towards this like incredible run through the back half of the year. And it's a whole different proposition going through a full preseason, going through the long. You can't just run on that energy, right? So it's gonna be a big test, I think, for this team, especially with some of the moves and new pieces that they're trying to integrate. Especially
Doyle, I remember last season you said that Vancouver became like your favorite team to watch the way they played, which I had never heard you say about Vancouver before. They were always just very pragmatic, boring, if you will, and Vanni Sartini kind of injected this sort of new energy into this team. They were attacking. They were just really fun and exciting to watch. Do you agree with Calen that what they did sort of in the back half of 2021 is going to be hard to replicate? Because I really want I want Vancouver to do well, because I agree. I loved watching them last season. They were so much fun. I love Vanni Sartini. I love Brian White. But what's realistic for them in 2022?
So I think they can replicate the results, but they can't do it in the way that they did it last year. They were playing so open under Sartini, and as open as they were today in a lot of ways, and they were just somehow surviving by the skin of their teeth more often than not. And like that's not sustainable over the course of a full season. And I'm not saying it's back to the drawing board for the Caps, but like that, it was almost like a 3-4-1-2 with Michael Baldissimo having to make the really complex defensive rotations and figure out who to pick up, and like that's not his that's not his strong suit, even in a simplified scheme. So like maybe get a second, double pivot in there or something, but figure out a way to be a little bit more pragmatic. You don't have to be as negative as they were under Mark Dos Santos and Colorado. But like the magic from last season is wonderful. It's not going to last this full season. You have to be a little bit more solid in high leverage positions and figure out how to build the attack from there without exposing yourself too much, or you end up on the wrong end of a 4-0.